Hey guys, welcome back to another doll customizing video. Obviously, since you clicked on this video, you know I will be making a 17-inch Frankie doll. This is not my first attempt at customizing one of these tall dolls. I have tried a Draculaura in the past, but I never finished her because I just kind of gave up on her, but I will be trying to finish her later on. But this Frankie doll is the first of these tall series dolls that I actually completed. That being said, the techniques and processes I do in this video I have had practice at. I also want to note that this doll is really inspired by another doll customizer on Instagram by the name of Mia's Daydream. She is the absolute master at customizing these 17-inch dolls. She also recently started uploading videos to her YouTube channel, so I really highly recommend her. If you guys want to see more of my customizing videos, don't forget to subscribe. Other than that, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I do is cut out Frankie's eye holes. I will be giving her inset eyes made from resin. I actually do want to try repainting a doll without cutting out her eyes. The reason I did this on Frankie was because her eyes were pretty messed up. They had a lot of pen markings on them. I think this is the one that my sister was going to give away, and I decided that she would be a perfect candidate to give inset eyes. Please be careful when you do this because you really need a very sharp X-Acto knife when cutting the eye holes out, because if it's not sharp, it's really tricky to actually get a clean cut. So make sure that you're very careful and you take your time when doing this. It's very easy to overestimate the eye hole size and cut out way too much than you need. I think it took me about 4 minutes per eye to cut out the eye hole shape, so that just shows you how long it takes to cut out the eye holes. You really want to take your time and make sure that they're even. Once that is done, I use some Q-tips and acetone to wipe off any other paint that is on her face, before cutting off her hair with a sharp pair of scissors and cutting a hole into the back of her head so that I can be able to give her inset eyes later on. Before moving on, I quickly tested out her eye shape with an old pair of resin eyes that I made a while ago just to make sure that they would fit properly. Then I removed the little screws that are on her neck, and with my sharp X-Acto knife again, I scrape off the painted details that she has on her neck, arms, and legs. At first, I only scraped off the paint that was around her neck, but once I had her outfit on her, I noticed that you could still see the details underneath her really light pair of pants and shirt, so I ended up scraping them off later on. Moving on to eyes, I will be using this eye mold that I bought off of Etsy a really long time ago, so I'm not really sure who I bought it from. I also bought these resin supplies off of Sophie and Toffee. The big bottle on the left is resin that will cure hard. The middle tiny bottle is white resin, that is so you can tint the resin that you'll be using, and the right bottle is a soft type resin. I actually don't end up using that one because it isn't needed, but it is something that I did buy just in case. I also use this, which is also used for tinting resin white. I bought this a while ago too, so I'm not really sure where I got it, but I actually do recommend this one more because it is more concentrated than the Sophie and Toffee one is. Now I use the hard type resin and the two tints to make it white to fill up the eye molds. The way I'm filling up the eye molds now actually didn't work out very well because it didn't reach into the crevices of the eye mold, so there was a really big air bubble gap around the iris shape, so I actually ended up having to remake them. Once the eye molds are filled up, I use my UV lamp that is used for gel nails to actually cure them and make them hard. These are the first batch of eyes that I made. I didn't end up using any of these because of the cracks around the iris shape. To fill up the eye molds, I will be using these holographic flakes that I also bought from Sophie and Toffee. I have used these on numerous other projects. I use them mostly to fill up little glass charm bottles. I already knew that I was going to be giving this doll purple hair, so I decided for her hair to match, so I went with this purple grayish holographic flakes, and I also painted the center part of her eye with this purple paint. This is when I first noticed that the cracks in the eyes were going to be noticeable. As you can see, the paint was seeping through into those cracks, and it wasn't going to give me a clean finish. It kind of looks like I painted outside of the lines, so it didn't have a very sharp look, so I ended up remaking the eye molds and they turned out really nicely. To add the holographic flakes, I put a drop of that resin inside the center part, then I add a few of the flakes, cure it, and then I repeat the same process until I fully fill it up. I'm really glad that I went back and actually redid the eye molds because I think this way they have a really nice sharp look to them. I also really like the holographic flakes because they have a lot of variation in color to them. They kind of look purple, gold, bluish, pink, and I think that adds a really nice touch. Finally, moving on to her face up, there wasn't too much that I could do to this doll because of her eyes being missing. I paid a lot of attention to her lips, her nose, and her eyeshadow. I started off by wetting my brush and using a red watercolor pencil to paint onto her lips. Using some soft pink pastels, I lightly blush her forehead, cheeks, and nose, before drawing in her top eyeliner with a black watercolor pencil. My pencil wasn't really giving me a clean look that I wanted for her top eyeliner, so I quickly ended up switching over to using my wet brush method. It almost felt like I was actually using real makeup to actually paint on her top eyeliner. I think it felt really real when I started painting on her winged eyeliner. Once I have both of her eyeliners done, I use some purple pastels to start drawing in the shape of her eyebrow. After I have the shape of her eyebrows done for both sides, I add in the crease to her eye, and then I start adding pink pastels for eyeshadow. I wanted her color palette to stay around purples and pinks, so those were the colors I used for her eyeshadow. After a second spray of Mr. Super Clear, I went ahead and did the left side using some pastels, just to show you how much a layer can do. I used a darker shade of purple near the outer parts of her eyebrows, then I used a light purple to lightly sketch in near the inner part of her eyebrows. Using a white watercolor pencil, I add some highlights underneath her eyebrow, and on the top part of her lip and her cupid's bow. After adding in the highlight, I go back in with my red just to make sure that the lines are clean. I guess I didn't record the parts where I added highlights over the crease in her eye, her eyeliner, and also near the inner corner of her eye. I also added purple and white eyebrow hairs. I really wanted to add just a few more details to this doll since her eyes were going to be resin. There wasn't really too much I could do to this doll that I wouldn't normally do on my other dolls, so I really just went heavy with the highlights. And last but not least, I use a brown watercolor pencil to add some lines to her lips. Doing doll lips is still something I think I struggle with. I'm not really sure where the line is between making it look realistic and detailed versus cartoony. Especially on this large of a doll scale, I wanted to make sure that I gave the lips detail. I really didn't want to leave them just a solid red color. And the last thing I do is add some green blushing around her lips. Now that her face-up is all complete, I really wanted to see how her face-up would look with the eyes inserted, so I'm just showing you right now as a little sneak peek. I'm really glad that I stuck with purples and pinks for her face-up because I think it matches, but it doesn't really take away from the really shininess of her eyes. Taking a break from the actual doll, I decided to make her pants. There was a few pattern pieces from regular Monster High dolls that I have in my stock box of doll patterns. The reason I didn't go with this pattern is because I didn't want them to be leggings and I really wanted a seam on the outer part of her legs. I wanted them to look somewhat realistic, so I ended up referencing this male pattern piece that I had. This pattern was going to give me the shape I needed, but I needed to make it fit the actual Monster High doll that I was going to be using, so I ended up just kind of measuring around her body and figuring out this pattern. I wanted the pants to be high-waisted and have a little bit of a flare to the bottom. The pattern I ended up making actually doesn't allow for seam allowance, so I ended up just adding it when I was cutting out the pattern pieces. I also didn't end up recording how I made these pants because I thought I would have to remake them, but actually this pattern ended up working perfectly, so these are the pants that I ended up making. I wanted her outfit to stay a bit more on the pastel side since the wrap I was going to be giving her was going to be white, and I didn't want her pants to distract from the whole outfit. But I did want to give them a bit of a detail, so I decided to sew on these pearl beads. I found these pearl beads at Hobby Lobby and I will be hand sewing them because they're pretty small and I feel like they'll fall off if I just simply glue them on using Fabri-Tac. These are the pants all done. I really love how they turned out. They turned out exactly how I wanted them to. I ended up finishing the pants by adding a snap in the back. I followed the same process I did for the pants. I just kind of measured around the doll's body to come up with these pattern pieces. And obviously I referenced the pattern pieces that I used to make tops for my regular size Monster High dolls to make this pattern. After cutting out all the pattern pieces, I sew them together and here is the top all complete. Since this doll is so much bigger, it does allow to add darts to this doll because it does add a bit more of a form-fitting shape. I found this silky white applique at my local fabric store that really started the whole fashion idea for this doll. I wanted this to dramatically wrap around the top part of this doll, so that is why I ended up going with a simple white long sleeve top and a very light pastel bottom. Moving on to accessories, I will be repainting Frankie's original shoes white and gold. I start off by repainting all of Frankie's shoes white, before moving on to painting the bottom half of her heel tan, and then I use the gold to go over that tan area because this does allow for the gold paint to actually show up, or else it would look very sheer. Once her shoes are completely dry, I spray her shoes with a layer of Mr. Super Clear just to lock in all the colors and paint. Then I use my Liquitex High Gloss Varnish to gloss her shoes and also her purple nails. Originally, I was going to leave her shoes completely white because I didn't want them to distract from her outfit, but I ended up going with gold since it would match the color in her inset eyes. I didn't need to add in her inset eyes quite yet because I do leave the circle in the back of her head open so that I can adjust her eyes later on in the future. I will be using this purple hair that I bought from Amazon. It's not the best quality, but for what I'm doing with it, I'm not going to be texturizing it, so it is really nice and soft for this project. I followed the same method that I do when adding yarn wefts. I just use my hot glue gun to lay down a layer of glue, and then I press on the hair onto the head. The reason I left the hole in the back of her head open was because I still wanted to be able to adjust the position of her eyes. So what I ended up doing was gluing down complete wefts before using my X-Acto knife to cut along the already cut lines. Here is a photo I took with her hair almost complete. It's not the prettiest solution, but it does allow access to the eyes while also giving the hair a full shape. Since I wanted her hairstyle to stay pretty simple, I decided to use these charms and pins to act as barrettes on the side of her head. I bought these eyelashes at Target and I will be using them as 3D lashes for this doll. The first thing I do is measure the eyelash and cut it to the proper length before using some Mod Podge to glue it on. I felt like her face was incomplete, so I decided to give her bottom lashes as well. With that done, I dress her up and take some final photos. Here is my tall Frankie all complete. I absolutely love how she turned out. I still think I have a lot to learn on resin eyes, but other than that, I really love her eye shape and her face up. My favorite part about this doll is definitely her outfit, but I also love that I left the option to change the position of her eyes. Her hair completely hides the fact that there's a giant hole in the back of her head that you can actually open and access her eyes, which is definitely a plus. This is me shakily recording her entire body because it wouldn't fit in the frame of my camera. I really love the pearl details all over her body. I love the pearls on her pants, her necklace, and then the little pearls on her barrettes. My local fabric store actually has a lot of these appliques that I really like, so I may be using them again in the future. I do have about 6 of these different colored butterfly appliques that I may be making into a series of dolls. I think for those I may show the process on how I made one of them and then release the whole collection all together. And here are some photos of that applique being wrapped around her in different ways just to show you that there is variety. I actually like this one a little bit better than I had her originally because it shows off the applique, but it also doesn't cover up her top completely. But this is the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining me on another doll customizing video. I really hope you guys enjoyed seeing me customize a different style of doll and giving her inset eyes, which is something new for my channel. My next video will actually be a repaint of a different style of doll, and it will also be a review of some products sent to me by Arteza. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see that video and hit the bell for notifications. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a like and let me know what your favorite part about this doll was in the comments section below. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.